With a library as massive as Hanna-Barbera's, with tons of shows and specials to boot, it's not uncommon for some ideas to not make the cutting room floor. And with Hanna-Barbera, there's a lot of them. I might not be able to get to all of them, but more of the ones I think will be interesting to talk about. So let's take a look. One of the earliest scrap projects was a show called The Jaguars in the 60s, about a group of Jaguars who were in a band, an obvious send-up to the Beatles. All that exists is concept art by Iwo Takamoto. The Flintstones had several revivals and spin-offs that never got off the ground. One was a show called, The Blackstones. It's about a Black Stone Age family who would become the Flintstones' new neighbors. It was conceived by Joe Barbera, and this was around the time black sitcoms like Sanford and Son, That's My Mama, and especially Good Times were popping up. And Hanna-Barbera were trying to capitalize on it, something HB is no stranger to. Now, I don't think I need to explain why this wasn't picked up and rejected by all the networks, but on the plus side, I do love these designs. There were plans to have a more modern Flintstones show, with the revival set in present day of the 70s, where Fred and Barney are construction workers, while Wilma and Betty are housewives. What you're seeing here is presentation art drawn by Willie Ito. The whole concept of the Flintstones in modern day would later be explored in the 1977 special, Energy, a National Issue. I'm kinda glad this didn't go anywhere. I think the Flintstones work best in their Stone Age fantasy setting. Plus, the Honeymooners' influence is a bit more blatant here. When George Lucas' sci-fi epic Star Wars released in 1977, it took the world by storm, and in true Hollywood fashion, everyone wanted to copy it, including Hanna-Barbera. Not too much is known about this show, apart from the concept art found on Hermitage auctions, and most likely would have been about Fred and Barney having their own Star Wars-esque space adventures. This show obviously didn't get picked up, but Fred and Wilma made a cameo advertising the TV airing of Star Wars in 1984.
Well, naturally, we were just kids when we saw Star Wars. And now Pebbles loves it. It's such an incredible movie. Yabba dabba doo.
In the mid-90s, there was another attempt at a Flintstones revival. This one called The Flintstones, The Lost Episodes. This is interesting because it was developed by Ren and Stimpy artist Bill Ray. The show was set in the pre-Bedrock society and more in tune to the adult feel of the original series. With the Flintstones being rebranded as a kids franchise for so long, this would have been a breath of fresh air. Coincidentally, CN would try to recapture the spirit of the originals in 2001's Flintstones on the Rocks, to mixed results. So what happened? Well, you could thank John Cave for having this never seen the light of day. There were many attempts to revive the Jetsons, more specifically, a live-action film that was in development since the 80s.
George Jetson, his boy Elroy, daughter Judy, Jane his wife. The Jetsons, live in their first full-length feature. Executive producer Gary Nardino.
One of the earliest came from a script by Eric Luke, who wrote the Joe Dante film Explorers. Jumping from writers to producers, even directors like Joe Dante and Robert Rodriguez. The live-action Jetsons will be in development hell for the next 2 decades, though there would be a theatrical animated film in 1990. A live-action sitcom was planned for ABC in 2017, but even that didn't come to fruition. Now let's get to the animated shows. In the 70s, there were plans for Hanna-Barbera and CBS to update the Jetsons. Judy would have a job as a reporter, Elroy would be a teenager, and Astro would have puppies, and Jane shopping.
Jane shopping!
This was most likely a response to another HB sequel series, The Pebbles and Bam Bam Show. I think this had a lot of potential. It would have been cool to see the kids grow up and do different things. Unfortunately, CBS head Fred Silverman rejected the idea, and it was retooled as The Partridge Family in 2200 AD, where for some reason the Partridge Family are living in Orbit City from the Jetsons. I'm not kidding, they're in the exact goddamn house. That's clearly the Jetsons' house. They're using their gadgets, they even got a knockoff robot Astro. Who do they think they are? I know it's pretty lame, but the Partridge Family were pretty popular back then. Plus CBS figured they could get just as much mileage from reruns, than investing in new episodes. A shame really, but what are you gonna do? There was an attempt to reboot the show in the mid-90s. A script was developed by animation and sitcom writer Ed Scarlage. It was about the family replacing Rosie the robot with a human maid, and then getting sick of the new maid when she complains a lot and cries too much. Ed goes into more detail in his interview with Mike Joseph for his podcast, a podcast named Scooby-Doo. The infamous Turner/Time Warner merger, which you heard me mention a lot on this show, reared its ugly head, and Warner axed this new Jetsons project. Also, the failure of Jetsons the movie and all the money Turner lost in a marketing blitz for the Real Adventures of Johnny Quest gave Warner all the more reason to abandon New Jetsons. The only thing that exists from this proposed reboot is some production art by David Feiss, and judging by the looks of it, it looks like Jane was going to be a 90s career woman.
Weird of you to specify the decade.
Luckily, the Jetsons lived on for the rest of the 90s, and reruns on Cartoon Network and some very entertaining Radio Shack commercials.
We'll be right back.
Our favorite mystery-solving mutt is no stranger to canceled media, unfortunately, but there were several projects that never came to be, especially in a long line of DTV movies. We all remember the Fab Four, and who doesn't? They're iconic. Zombie Island, Witches, Ghosts, Alien Invaders, and Cyber Chase. But there was another movie by the same crew that was supposed to be released after Cyber Chase for fall 2002. It was an origin story of the gang that split between the past and present, similar to Stephen King's It. It would be a Fred-centric story. I talked to both Lance Falk and Davis Doy about this movie, and for more info on that, check out my The Perfect Scooby-Doo Duology retrospective. One canceled movie I'm dying to know more about was Scooby-Doo and the Anime Invasion, which was supposed to be released in 2004. In this film, Scooby and the gang go to an anime convention. What's interesting about this movie was that it was going to be written and directed by Tad Stones, known for many shows for the Disney Afternoon. Apparently it was greenlit, but scrapped because moms were into it. Given the time period, it should be noted, no one quite knew how to parody or reference anime, unless you were South Park. My guess the movie would have been chock full of fast-talking gags a la the original Speed Racer, or Pokemon spoofs, or even Yu-Gi-Oh references, seeing how that was a hot new thing at the time. I recently talked to Tad Stones about the film. He had this to say: I did a full script, but it was not approved to production. It had more of a B story than most of their videos. It starts at the end of the episode we never saw, with Velma pulling out all the clues in quick succession, leading to unmasking of the villain, firmly re-establishing her incredible powers of deductive reasoning. But when a mystery strikes a comic/animation convention, the world stops making sense. In that world, it's actually Scooby and Shaggy who are the experts. The monsters of the movie were a knockoff of Pokemon. The characters of the world's cessation seem to have come to life, cute at first, but as the convention goes, they reappear as their more powerful versions. The final version being truly monstrous. Ultimately, it's Velma who snaps out of it and dismisses all the talk of tubulas and interdimensional portals to uncover the bad guys. I forgot the specifics. I'm sure there was a behind-the-scenes fight over rights, a movie deal, and a special effects genius who created the monsters. I don't think I have a copy of the script, and all my files are packed away in preparation for a move. What's interesting here is the idea of Pokemon-like creatures that are cute at first but come to life as more monstrous will be recycled in a What's New Scooby-Doo episode, E Scream. Scott Gerald's pitched a show in the early 2000s called Son of Scooby-Doo, about Scooby's adult son and the gang's nieces and nephews. An interesting concept, but I think people just wanted the classic gang. Plus, I'm not sure how to feel about Scooby's having a son. Also, shouldn't Scooby be older? Not long after the second season of What's New Scooby-Doo, animator Dexter Smith pitched a new series. Not much is known about what this series was going to be about. It didn't even have a name, but the artwork is really unique. I love the designs of the gang. They're flat and stylized, but also very expressive. This was passed over in favor of Shaggy and Scooby-Doo Get a Clue. Luckily, these designs didn't go to waste, as they were used in the opening title sequences in 3 Scooby-Doo direct-to-video movies from the early 2010s. Scooby-Doo Abracadabra-Doo, Scooby-Doo Camp Scare, and Scooby-Doo Legend of the Phantosaur. Oddly enough, Draw McGraw has several revivals that didn't go anywhere. He would have started his own Hanna-Barbera Superstars 10 movie, Quickest Draw in the West. He was mostly relegated to cameos. The team behind the Flintstones on the Rocks would have done a Draw McGraw special on Cartoon Network, but it was canned because, quite frankly, there was no interest in the character. That also could be why Jorge Gutierrez's pitches weren't picked up. Yes, for those who don't know, Jorge Gutierrez was planning a revival of Draw McGraw in the 2010s, while working at Warner Bros. Animation. Out of all the canceled Quick Draw projects, I really wish we could have gotten this. It would have been a more violent spaghetti western. I'm a big fan of Jorge's work and his art style. It would have been so cool to see. It wouldn't be Hanna-Barbera without a cartoon based on a celebrity. From Abbott and Costello in the 60s, Harlem Globetrotters in the 70s, Martin Short's completely mental misadventures of Ed Grimley in the 80s, and Rick Moranis in Gravedale High in the 90s. In the book, The Art of Hanna-Barbera, it's revealed there was a slew of celebrity cartoons that were in the planning stages. 2 were Rodney Dangerfield projects, one called Rodney, about Rodney Dangerfield growing up as a little boy, and the other was Rover Dangerfield, which we all know became a movie years later from a different studio. A show based on Lily Tomlin's character, Edith Ann, from Laugh-In, and a cartoon series starring Whoopi Goldberg. Another star on Hanna-Barbera's list was on a winning streak in the 80s, and that was Eddie Murphy. Yes, Eddie Murphy. Sometime in the 80s, HB were developing specials in a series starring Murphy in cartoon form. Joe Barbera was even quoted as saying, "Eddie Murphy is one of the most talented and appealing young stars I have seen in all my years in the industry." To think one of my favorite actors/comedians almost teamed up with my favorite animation studio, it just puts a smile on my face. I'd like to know more about this if anyone knows anything. At least Eddie would voice Hong Kong Phooey in a thankfully canceled live-action CG film.
Oh, look! A mint! Refreshing.
So this will conclude the first edition of the history of Unmade Hanna-Barbera projects. Stay tuned for more retrospectives coming up. Until next time, I'm 47 Cartoon Guy, and I gotta fly. Before we go, I'd like to point out a majority of info in this vid came from the Exposure Sheet, a Hanna-Barbera history blog run by my good friend Noah. If you like what I do, you're definitely gonna love his blog. Check it out today. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon for more updates, and like and comment on the video. It helps a great deal in the algorithm. Also, if you like what you saw today and want to support the channel, consider pledging to my Patreon. Yes, I finally got my old one back. For early access, exclusive vids, or requests for your own fantastic legacy of Hanna-Barbera minisodes review. Hope you all stay tuned because I got more stuff coming your way. I'll catch you later.